Ethan.
Riley. YouTube.
Cheers. We are here today with Armstrong's all-new mid-length lineup of wing, prone. You could probably wake foil it if you were so inclined.
Advanced downwind foiling in the 85, I'm sure.
Have you ridden these?
Yes. I've ridden the 65 and the 85. I really like them. I think at the end of last summer, I started getting on some demos of similar shaped boards that were just a lot longer and skinnier. And I think there's so much advantage to that length of water line in terms of releasing from the water. And I also have really noticed, and I talked about this in my downwind board video, but so much of your maneuverability comes from the actual foil you're on, and I really don't think you lose much with a longer board. So yeah, they've been awesome. 85, I got them for the first time a few days ago, and it was interesting to try out because I have an 85 liter downwind board, that V1 downwind board, and they're definitely really quite similar. I think the mid-length is just a little, it's not as thick, so it's maybe a bit more responsive from your input of your feet. Maybe there's a little delay with the downwind board, but they're definitely really similar. It got off the water really easy. Basically allows you to use a smaller foil, smaller hand wing, which having a smaller wing's awesome just when you're depowered because it's so much easier to handle. And then I got on the new 65 when we first got the demos in earlier this week, and it definitely rides small. I'd say it feels a little smaller in terms of your knee stability than the FG 58 liter, which is both our go-to boards. And then the 58 releases really well from the water. This one's a bit easier just with that extra length. Yeah, it felt awesome. I was really happy with it, and they're just really good looking boards too, so I like that as well.
Yeah, that side-to-side stability once you get down there to the 65 definitely takes a bit of a hit.
Yeah.
But I do feel like you get a lot of stability out of the length.
Yep.
I think the 65, it's nearly a foot longer than the FG 58.
I think it's 11 inches longer or something.
Yeah.
Right to me.
Yeah. So you get a lot of stability out of that. And then once you've got any power in the wing, they just kind of take off. So 65 for wing foiling. What do you think? Would you go with that, or you riding the FG?
Oh, for your daily driver wing foil board, I don't know. I do really like the FG boards. I think of like the quiver killer size here for your intermediate and up wing foiler, depending on your weight, is probably that 75.
Yep.
If I had to pick one thing to do everything, I think the 65 is still going to be tricky. In situations, if you're in a lot of waves, getting to your knees can be tricky. I think that 75 will be all out the best. Maybe if you're more beginner intermediate, or if you're a heavier rider, that 85 is going to be a really well-rounded size.
Heavier riders, or if it's a quiver board for you, maybe you're riding like a smaller, maybe sinker board on the high wind days, and you want something that'll get going in the really light winds. That 85, it's fun to ride.
Super fun.
I got out on that last week. Not a particularly light day, but man, you get a little bit of wind in the wing and that thing just takes off.
Yep.
It just doesn't really feel like you lose much with a long board like that.
I also think, like, I was talking with DJ about this. He's said it took him time to get used to the extra length up front and not touching down the nose. And I think a longer mast is to your benefit with any mid-length or downwind style board, just for the obvious reason that it's easier to clear swell. I think he's on the 795 that day, so it's a relatively shorter mast, and we're on like a 90 centimeter mast. So that's something to consider. I think I've definitely thought about that with my downwind board. Just happy to have that extra length on the foil mast. But I'm sure you could figure it out and kind of get used to all of them. It's a bit of a transition, but yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on these?
I'd be curious. We don't have ocean swell here in town, so not much prone foiling happening. But I think like they make it down to a 45 liter board, which looks really small in person for any wind sports. I'm sure at a high level people will ride them and make it look really good, but it did look like, for someone who has a surfing background and is curious about getting into prone foiling, and you could say the same about the 55 or the 65, but that 45 liter looked like a pretty ideal board to get out and practice prone foiling.
Yeah, even looking at the 65, as a pretty novice surfer and absolute beginner trying to prone foil, that looks to me like something that I could take out and mess around on, and it could potentially work. Whereas, those really small prone foil boards, I don't think I have a chance.
Yeah. I think the mid-lengths are super versatile. I think they kind of are what you make it. You could absolutely just have one foil board that you could wing on, you could prone, you could do so much with, and then also in the smaller sizes, they can be more specific to whether, to prone foiling, or, really high wind winging. And in the larger sizes, they can be pretty specific, like that 85 to be a dedicated light wind foil board, similar to the small downwind boards. But I think they have a big place in the foil community or foil sport disciplines.
Yeah, so one feature that wing foilers and potentially some prone foilers are going to appreciate with these versus a lot of the smaller downwind specific boards is they do still utilize the foot straps. So you've got a setup in the front for either kind of a V strap or a single foot strap, and then a single foot strap in the back. So, if you're a winger that appreciates having that extra bit of control, or if you want to do some boosting with these, they're set up for that.
With the mid-length boards that I'm kind of just looking at now, is these blue lines show you exactly where the foil tracks are on the board, which you can always, they'll always have the inserts pretty much where the foil tracks are, but it's kind of a cool touch to know that where you put your foil, you could kind of line it up to your back foot's right over it. That's pretty cool. As always, you've got the FG system on all Armstrong boards, so they're gonna work especially well with Armstrong foils, and they're nice long tracks, so you have a lot of working room to kind of dial in exactly where you like your foil mast with a specific foil mounted to. I think that's really it. I'm excited to see all of the various stuff people are going to get into with these boards. I think it's going to be a lot of variety, and I'm definitely excited to spend more time on the water with them.
Yeah, it definitely opens up a lot of possibilities, riding smaller foils in lighter winds, like you were saying, riding smaller wings, and just having that extra confidence to get out in conditions where maybe you otherwise wouldn't. One thing, I don't think we touched on is just how quick these boards paddle too.
True.
Which
Huge.
for us here, a lot of times either we're paddling out to the wind, we're paddling back in if the wind dies, and having a board like this that just takes off really inspires a bit more confidence when you're getting out there.
So let's think about really quick versus like a more the standard wing FG template. What's gonna be the difference you feel on foil? So say you're up on foil, how is it gonna feel different when you're riding?
So I think one of the advantages of these is that at a given volume, you're gonna have a narrower outline.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously in the smaller wing FG boards, those are pretty narrow as well. And what that allows is just tighter carves without catching the rail in the water. The added length, obviously you touched on that a bit with, you kind of have to watch that nose a little bit more, whereas the wing FG, especially in the 58, 70 liter sizes that seem to be popular. Yeah. They're very compact shapes, so you don't really ever worry about the nose.
Probably notice that most when you're like, if you're pumping to catch up to a wave or whatnot. I think with the wing FG, you don't even have to really think about it. It's, at least in that 58 size, they're so compact you can just kind of go for it without thinking. These ones you probably will need maybe a slightly different pumping cadence and keep the foil a little higher in the water.
Yeah.
I think, like, from my experience riding that 85 and my downwind board for that matter, even the 65 to a certain degree, they're still relatively small boards, but it does kind of feel more like a longboard surfing style versus a shorter board. There's maybe a little more delay in the turns, and you're kind of can get more centered on this longboard, which I like surfing longboards a lot. So I kind of like that kind of vibe, especially when you have a short board too.
Riding the 85 and the downwind board that I've been riding, you notice that kind of extended sweet spot a little bit, where on my 58 I'm kind of finding, I might move my back foot around a little bit to account for going upwind or downwind, but on these it really feels like you have the ability to move around and kind of play with your feet, and like get on a wave and you kind of step forward.
Yeah, you can be a bit looser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so final question. You're walking into the shop today. You're buying one board. What's it gonna be?
I only have one foil board.
One foil board.
Oh man. I would get the 75, I think. I think the 65 would be great for pretty much all winging, but we do have a lot of light wind here in the North Puget Sound region in the summer, and I love getting out before work in the morning, value that paddle speed and just the ease of the takeoff and the confidence when the wind could die on our like kind of morning diurnal winds. So I'd go with the 75 mid-length. I think that could be the quiver killer for all wing foil boards.
I think you might be right.
Yeah.
Not having ridden the 75 yet, I'm excited to try it. That 85, super easy, really fun to ride. Obviously there's some trade-offs. I do love the compact feel of the wing FG, especially if you're jumping or in big swell and carving tight turns. Those little boards are really fun to ride, but I do agree that if you're trying to make the most out of the widest variety of conditions, one of these in kind of that medium size probably gonna be the ticket.
Yeah, I'd agree. All right, like always, as always, you can give us a call at the shop. You could talk to me or Riley if you have any questions on the Armstrong Midlength boards or really anything Armstrong. We both have a lot of experience with pretty much all of their boards and foils. If you have a question, leave it down below in the comments too. You should give us a quick like on the video. It'd be nice. Not necessary though. Anything else to add before we sign off, Riley?
Thanks for watching.